So as you can see, I have the top piece of plywood all screwed down and fastened and cut and formed to the framework of the table, and it is perfect in my opinion. I've secured it to the framework with 3 rows of nails. Each row has 9 nails, and they're perfectly spaced to about a foot each. Yeah, and I say perfectly spaced to about a foot because the center beams are perfectly centered, 12 inches on center, but the end boards are not on center, so that's why I said that, if there's any confusion there. But looks very nice. It's very clean. I made sure that all the screws were countersunk in there, and it just looks very neat. Very happy with how it's coming out so far. So the next thing that I think I'm going to do is finally do those pieces of wood along the bottom here. And the nice thing about making this table the size that I did is this scrap piece that I got when I cut the tabletop to size. I'm definitely going to be able to utilize this to make shelves in the future, which I'm still trying to debate how I want to do this exactly. I almost kind of want to have a plywood backing on here, and then I'll do some shelves like this, so this will be a ton of storage for me, which is going to be extremely helpful. So maybe I'll keep spray paints and stuff along those lines. I'm thinking about getting back into RC snowplow stuff, which that's actually how I kind of started the channel. Posted videos of my homemade RC snowplow. I did one, I made a video about it in 2013. I know it's 2016, but it was towards the end of 2013, so it was probably around 2 years ago. A little more than 2 years ago, and 2 years ago that thing got 76,000 hits, and I think it's pretty cool. It's pretty interesting stuff, so that might be something I might be doing in the future. Maybe do an actual series on how to actually make the snowplow and how it works, which there's really not a lot of information about that online, and it still seems to be incredibly popular, especially among young RC hobbyists. So yeah, anyway, back to work. Alright, so it's been a couple days since I've worked on this table. I've been incredibly busy, and I finally have a couple hours to get back to it here. So today my main priority is going to be figuring out how I want to do these shelves. This is the rear of the table that's going to butt up against the wall. This is the front. The saw is just positioned like that because this is how I have, well, I have more room to work in front of the table over here. Anyway, the two design concepts that I've mainly been debating would be having a 2x4 run here and here. Basically, if you take these two and you slid them over to the left a little bit, and then you could run cross members going back and forth from side to side, and then you'd have a very strong shelf. My issue is I'm running short on material, and I don't really want to have to go out and purchase more. So kind of what I'm thinking, instead of doing that, is I'm going to run 3 2x4s going along the back of the table, and then I'm just going to run braces, I guess you'd call them, like on a 45-degree angle, just to support the shelves. I think I'm going to do 2 shelves. I'm going to do one maybe midway, and then I do a shelf up top if I wanted to store a couple pieces of long 2x4s or something along those lines. So, and then ideally I would like to do a shelf on the very bottom as well. I'm just not sure if I'm going to have enough material to do that, but I know in the future that's something very easy to add, as opposed to doing these shelves in the back. Once I position the table along the back, I'm not really going to be able to play around with it unless I take everything off the table and scoot it out and go through that whole process again. So I'm going to prioritize on working on these shelves. So I'm going to get started on that. Not really sure how it's going to turn out, but we'll see what we can do. Alright, so I finally come to terms with myself that I'm not going to have enough material to do everything that I want with this table this time around. So what I decided, or what I've elected to do is, as you can see, I've secured 3 backbones, whatever the fuck you want to call them. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use my last sheet of plywood, and it's pretty going to much take up the majority of the piece of plywood, and I'm just going to lay it along the back edge here. And the reason I'm doing that is for a couple of reasons. One, I think cosmetically it'll look nicer than opposed to having open shelves and having nothing on the back except, looking at plywood. So cosmetically. Secondly, this is kind of a two-part reason. One, whenever you're dealing with round objects or objects that have a tendency to fall off the table, the worst possible outcome would be that it would fall behind the table. So when you at least do a little board along the back here, it just helps keep everything on the table. So that reason. Also, the second part to that reason is when I do decide to do, or when I do get around to putting shelves on here, it'll be a lot nicer to have some type of backing material. Again, same principle there. If something were to push out the back and then it fall down behind the table, it's just a pain in the ass. So I think it's going to be beneficial in the future. And then my third reason is if I ever want to hang up anything, if I ever want to hang up any tools, or I don't know, if there's anything I want to hang up back there, a Nudie Girl magazine or something like that, or calendar, I'll have the ability to just drill out a hole or tack it on that backboard without having to damage my drywall, which I much prefer. So I've already leveled all these out. They're already fastened in, as you saw a couple moments ago. And next thing I got to do is measure out my piece of plywood and cut it. We'll already measure the height of all these, and they're uniformly equal in height. And I need to measure out that plywood to 40 3/8 of an inch all the way across the board. So let's get going on that plywood. We'll throw it on here, and then I'm not sure. We'll figure out what to do from there. I think I will have enough material to at least frame out my top shelf. And I should have enough material to do kind of one pretty basic shelf to hang like light duty items such as paint cans and little odds and ends that I want to throw out there. So let's get going on that plywood.